a newspaper editor in university when I went to law school, and I was writing. I was also the editor of a now defunct music magazine. So I had kind of thought maybe that would be my path in life. And I went to law school and I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't have a lot of interest in becoming a lawyer. But when I graduated, I saw a job opportunity in the Arctic. So I didn't have the grades. I didn't have the background to do this job, but I applied and I sent in my resume on colored paper with a picture of myself in the snow. And lo and behold, I got the interview. And then out of several hundred applicants, I got the job. And so a 1-year contract turned into 17 years I spent working as a criminal lawyer. And during that time, though, writing was always an interest of mine. And I took workshops whenever I could. And I tried to, write short stories, screenplays. I started doing editing work. So it all kind of just spiraled from there over the years. Well, in the novel, he worked in a completely different region, and he had botched a murder case, what ends up being a murder case for a young boy. And he gets, in essence, exiled to the Arctic, to this small town. They basically transfer him up there while there's a civil suit unfolding that's related to the case. And his entire life is a disaster. Most of the cops that I had met in the years of working in the Arctic were there because they wanted to be there. But I'm sure that there's a few who probably got transferred up there for one reason or another, that something went wrong in their career. So I use that as the framework to put him in the Arctic. And the rest of his life is just a complete disaster while he's there. He's a guy who everything's gone wrong in his life. He got divorced and his wife can't stand him. He's estranged from his young daughter. He's had this murder case that went terribly wrong, so he no longer trusts his instincts. And he doesn't just trust himself as a police officer. And then on top of that, he's got a civil suit that he's looking at related to that case that could destroy his career. And so he's aging, he's in the twilight of his career, and everything has gone wrong up until this point. But it sets him up so that when he encounters this one crime that he cares a lot about the victim, he sees it as his one chance to redeem himself. Well, he's surrounded by intense social problems in this area. There's a high suicide rate. It's got one of the highest violent crime rates per capita in the world. And, he's a guy who wants to, do right. And he's got a strong sense of justice. And he meets this young woman who, she's got substance abuse issues. She's been abused. She's finding herself in all kinds of trouble. And then when she ends up dead, he feels partially responsible. And given that he has a young daughter who's been through her own series of problems, he sees a real connection with her, and he feels something between them. So when she dies, as I said, he feels responsible for it and tries to redeem himself by getting justice for her. Well, I feel like I didn't have much time to think about a lot of that because I was so busy putting him through the grinder. I really tried to throw as many obstacles and as much negative energy as I could at him during the course of the book. And I really wanted to make him miserable because I'd met so many. He's really a composite of a lot of the police officers I met over the years when I was in the Arctic. And it's a rough life. It's terrible. Those guys are on call 24/7. The environment, blizzards, super cold temperatures, they're surrounded by this high crime rate. So he doesn't have a ton of time to think about what he's going to do when he catches the person who's done this, or if it's even a real crime, if it's not something, because he no longer trusts his instincts because of the last botched investigation. So he's not even sure what he's going to do for most of the story. He's just basically trying to get through day to day and get as close to solving this as he can. It's interesting that you mentioned technology because the town that I set the book in now has 6 police officers. It's got full cell service. But I wanted to write it as it was when I first went there back in 2004, 2005. I worked as a criminal lawyer in that region for 17 years. So I'd had a lot of experience with investigations, and a lot of my friends while I was there were police officers. So there was no shortage of reference material or research people I could ask questions from over the years. And I've said this in other interviews and in article and in a big article that I wrote a few years ago, that I never really encountered. We always see psychopaths and sociopaths on television on a regular basis as if they're everywhere. But I've represented probably thousands of people in violent crime cases, and there's only a handful of people that I met that were really irredeemable, terrible people. A lot of them are just damaged people who've gone off the path and made terrible mistakes or have substance abuse issues. So when I wrote this villain, he was very much I wanted him to be in the end something diabolical, something terrible, something larger than life. But I had no reference point of that in my criminal lawyer career, really, in order to do that. So I had to base a lot of that on villains that I had experienced through popular culture over the years.